Good evening. My name is Lane Wyndham, and I'm the Associate Director of the Kalmanovitz Initiative for Labor and the Working Poor here at Georgetown. We're thrilled to have you here today, and we're thrilled to host the Catholic Labor Network here tonight with Clayton Sinyai, who is one of our, I guess it's a practitioner fellow, is what we call it. For this important discussion about DC labor, what's been happening, and about the church. We're so excited to have everyone here, including John Carr, our colleague. So Clayton asked me just to say a word about the Kalmanovitz Initiative, because there might be some people here who don't know a whole lot about it. The Kalmanovitz Initiative is, I guess you might say it's sort of the labor center here at Georgetown, but it's really much more than that. It is really more of a center for worker justice and for the fair economy. We have a vision that, working people today face enormous challenges. I don't know if anybody saw, but the Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers just came out today, and union membership is down again, which is something we're kind of used to. And that's not the only issue, of course, facing working people. But we really believe that in order for working people to build power, we have to have a whole new level of innovative strategies and tactics. And so we see our organization as a hub for those kind of tactics. And we're also pretty unique in that we're based in the Catholic teachings about the dignity of work, of labor, and the importance of a fair and just economy. And so from that base, we do innovate, incubate thought and research, for instance, from our journal Labor that Patrick Dixon works on, or our Working Class Perspectives, our very well-read blog that John Russo works on. We foster student activism through our organizing fellowships, worker justice, DC spring breaks. Alex Taliadoros with the KI works a lot on those. Our labor capital strategies match students with unions and progressive investment groups. We're also a seat for Bargaining for the Common Good, which is a cutting-edge program that unites labor and community groups to expand the scope of collective bargaining and the kinds of issues that we can fight for in collective bargaining. So it's not just about what the workers at one specific work site need, but more bargaining for the whole and for the collective. For instance, the Chicago public teachers recently fought for housing in their collective bargaining fight and strike. We also have a program called Will Empower, which builds the next generation of women labor leaders. It's a joint project with Rutgers. Azani Creeks is one of our apprentices with that program. And we are going to soon have a new program called REAP. James, what does that stand for?
Race and Economic Empowerment Project.
There we go. And James Benton is going to be running that project. And of course, the KI is the seat for organizations like the Catholic Labor Network. And Clayton Sinyai is the practitioner fellow who works with us on that. And so I am going to turn it over now to you, Clayton, to introduce the group and get us started.
All right. Thank you. As Lane mentioned, I'm Clayton Sinyai, Executive Director of the Catholic Labor Network. Our organization has been around for about 25 years. We are a group of Catholic labor union activists and leaders, and Catholic clergy, lay, and religious social justice activists who are interested in Catholic social teaching around labor and work, and how the church and church teaching contributes to efforts for social justice. A lot of people, for those of you who are not familiar with the history of Catholic social teaching, the Catholic Church has been interested in issues of labor for a very long time, starting with the encyclical of Pope Leo XIII, Rerum Novarum, in 1891. That is, in that encyclical, in facing the problems of the Industrial Revolution, that Pope Leo recommended the use of, recommended that workers organize in unions in order to secure a fair wage. This was at a time in which most countries looked on unions as criminal conspiracies and discouraged their organization. This was 40 years before the United States recognized the right to organize in labor unions with the National Labor Relations Act. And it was something interesting that, and when Pope Leo wrote of the idea of organizing in Rerum Novarum, he introduced a notion that's very central to Catholic social teaching, solidarity. And when he spoke of how to, when he endorsed the idea of workers organizing in unions, he cited the book of Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament. He cited where the writer said, "Two are better than one. They get a good wage for their toil. If one falls, the other will help the fallen one. So also, if two sleep together, they keep each other warm. Where one alone may be overcome, two may resist. A three-ply cord is not easily broken." So Pope Leo was encouraging workers to organize and exhibit solidarity with one another by forming workers' organizations in order to pursue justice. And we're going to hear tonight from hopefully two different speakers who have a first-hand experience of this. We have Jesus Salazar who is a member of the Service Employees International Union, 32BJ. He is working for EMI Custodial, if I remember correctly. And we have Tanae Stover, who is right now experiencing one of the occupational hazards of working for a living. Her boss held her over and she's running late. But she's supposed to be joining us here very shortly. At any rate, these two industries are a really good illustration of what the church says about the role of labor unions. If you are working in one of these two industries and you do not have the protection of a union contract, chances are you are working full-time and still living in poverty. The average wage of a building custodian, a janitor in the United States, the median wage is $12 an hour, $24,000 a year, that's your salary. If you have any dependents, that's a poverty wage. The average wage in food service and preparation, Tanae Stover works preparing food for airline flights. The average wage for workers in that category is $11.09 an hour, $22,000 a year for a full-time worker. I'm sure you understand, I'm sure all of us realize that that's not a living wage by any definition, really in any part of the country, much less in an area with a high cost of living like myself. So with this, I want to give the floor to our guest to tell us about his experience, what work is like for him, and what his role in the union is like, because Mr. Salazar serves on the contract action team. The union recently organized and succeeded in bargaining some substantial wage and benefit increases in the Metro DC area. And I would like to invite Mr. Salazar to tell us about what his life on the job is like, what his role in the union is, and how those things came together to make their contract campaign a success this year when they renegotiated their contract. So I will turn this over to you. And you don't have to stand. You can sit or stand, whatever you prefer.
Good afternoon. I'm sorry que yo poquito English.
I'm going to translate for
Okay.
which is why I'm standing here.
My name is Jesus Salazar. Yo he venido a este país hace 20 años,
I came to this country 20 years ago,
de lo cual estoy muy conforme por haber venido porque se me abrieron las puertas.
and I was very happy to move here because the doors opened for me when I came.
Al principio fue muy duro, demasiado duro cuando comencé a trabajar acá en Washington, D.C. Muy duro.
At first it was really hard when I came to work here in Washington, D.C.
Comencé a trabajar, ganábamos un sueldo demasiado bajo. No teníamos,
When I started working here, our salary was very low.
no teníamos ni una clase de beneficios.
We didn't have any kind of benefits.
Las compañías con las que comenzamos a trabajar abusaban demasiado de los trabajadores.
The company which I was working for at the time did a lot of abuse of the workers' rights.
De los cuales cuando nos enteramos que había unión en Washington, D.C., lo que antes llamábamos, lo que se llama el local 32BJ, se acercaron hacia nosotros.
And so we heard that there was a union trying to form for this type of work, and they approached us.
Sí.
And ellos se acercaron a ustedes.
Sí. Y cambió la vida de muchos trabajadores dentro de mi edificio.
The life of the workers in my building changed once
Porque comenzamos a ser respetados.
because we started to be respected.
Tuvimos voz dentro del edificio.
We had a voice inside the building or our place of work.
Comenzamos a tener mejores sueldos.
We started to have better salary.
Comenzamos a tener, que sea, en esos tiempos nos dieron vacaciones, que sea 2 días, pero nos dieron vacaciones.
At that time, they gave us some vacation. It wasn't a lot, but they gave us vacation. He said at the time it was 2
Antes
days.
teníamos que, enfermos, con gripe, con el flu, con todo, venir a trabajar.
Before we would have to go to work regardless of whether we were sick with the flu or anything else.
Todo esto comenzó a cambiar mi vida y a tratar de luchar por mis compañeros que no tenían voz, que no querían hablar.
So all this changed me and my coworkers, we started to speak up. I started to speak up for my coworkers who didn't have a voice. I felt like I needed to speak up.
Esto para mí no cambió mi vida, lo cambió la vida de mi mamá, porque yo soy de Perú.
So this didn't change my life because I've already been active and I came from Peru. But he's saying it looks like he was going to say that it changed his workers, his coworkers.
Y en Perú yo estudiaba en la universidad, igual también era algo inaudito estudiar en la universidad porque no se podía estudiar en la universidad porque no había dinero para estudiar.
So when he was in Peru, he was a student, but if you were low income, you couldn't go to university. So he wasn't very involved in.
Yo tengo hasta octavo ciclo de administración de empresas y no pude terminar. Por eso me vine para este país.
So he couldn't finish school in Peru, which is why he came over to this country.
Acá comencé a estudiar, comencé a trabajar como se llama con la Unión. Estoy luchando desde 2001 en la Unión para beneficios de mis compañeros, no solo míos, sino de casi de todo de Washington. Se está luchando por Maryland, se está luchando por Virginia.
So when I came over, I started. I went to school and I learned about the union. I started working, and trying to remember everything he said. I've been fighting since 2001, and not just for myself, but for my coworkers and for workers in Virginia and in Maryland as well.
Hemos logrado mucho, hemos logrado bienestar, tenemos un bienestar seguro de dental, visión, médico, lo que antes no teníamos.
We've gained a lot. We have dental and vision insurance. He's part-time, so that's for part-time.
Part-time y full-time.
And then a full-time has health, regular health
Antes
insurance.
no teníamos nada, ahora tenemos con qué apoyarnos.
Before we didn't have anything, now we have something to relay back on, or something solid.
Pero ha sido muy duro luchar lo que hemos salido a luchar a las calles, pasar frío, hambre, y salir a luchar a que la gente se compromete con nosotros. Y hay muchos trabajadores de los mismos edificios que están salido a la calle a luchar con nosotros también.
So we've done this because we fought for what we we gained, we went to the streets, and there's many workers that went and tried to be stronger by going to the streets and fighting for our rights.
Yo he tenido muchas campañas, brigadas, salí, ¿cómo se llama?, a ver los contratos. Algo anecdótico, comencé ganando 5.40 la hora, me pagaban. Ahora estoy en 16.10.
So he was part of many brigades, which is the team that you're talking about, the action team, contract team. We call them brigades. He's been on many of them, and he started at 5.40 an hour, and now he's making 16.10.
Me comprometí mucho a luchar por mis compañeros. Yo soy muy católico.
So I made the commitment to fight for my coworkers. I'm very Catholic.
Entonces acá nos unimos un buen grupo de peruanos, ahora ya no solo es peruanos, sino internacionalmente tenemos colombianos, cubanos, dominicanos, que hemos formado una asociación que se llama el Señor de los Milagros.
So he belongs to an association called the Señor de los Milagros, our Sir of the Miracles. I don't know if that's exactly the translation. And it's a group started as Peruvians, but now there's the internationals here in DC.
Yeah. Y sí, tenemos una imagen que la sacamos de procesión acá en la Avenida California,
And they do a procession in California Street.
con el Reino de las Américas. No sé si ustedes han visto alguna vez. Salimos por las
The
calles.
Kingdom of the Americas, if you guys have ever heard of that procession in DC.
Yo combino la lucha de mis hermanos trabajadores con la lucha católica. La hago, participo de uno solo. De eso saco un resumen.
I combine the fight of my contract and of my coworkers with what we do with the Catholic group that I'm in, and I put those together and I try to combine them.
Yo siempre soy el portavoz de mis compañeros, porque a veces, lamentablemente, no todos tenemos la facilidad de hablar, de expresarnos.
So I'm always a spokesperson for my colleagues, because not everybody feels comfortable with speaking or has the ability to speak up.
Yo hablo un poco de inglés, pero por motivo de que no me expreso bien en inglés, pues me he traído mi traductora.
So I speak a little bit of English, but I feel more comfortable in expressing myself.
Le pido disculpas por
And
eso.
that's why I have a translator, so I apologize about that.
Pero ha sido muy duro luchar para conseguir esto. Casualmente,
It's been hard to fight for what we have, but
hemos ganado un contrato ahorita hace poco, el 16 de octubre,
October 16th we won a contract.
con muchos beneficios.
With a lot of benefits.
Tenemos 7 días de enfermedad.
We have 7 sick days,
Tenemos un día en nuestro cumpleaños que ahora lo hemos pasado como día feriado.
so we have our birthdays off and paid.
Tenemos días por duelos. Cuando muere un familiar muy allegado a nosotros, nos dan 3 días de...
We have 3 grievance days paid and off.
Tenemos la cobertura de salud que ahora ha aumentado. Dental, visión, medicina.
We have health insurance, including eye and dental and medicine.
Yes.
Or,
Tenemos el plan de migración, esto de migración para, ¿cómo se llama?, para ayudar a nuestros compañeros para que se estabilicen y puedan legalizar sus papeles acá.
We have an immigration-focused benefit that helps people if they need to fix immigration issues.
Pero como le digo, esto ha sido una lucha muy dura, esto muy duro, duro.
It has been a very hard fight.
Duro. Pero lo logramos,
But we got it, we did it,
porque las empresas no querían dar nada.
because the companies didn't want to give us anything.
Nunca quisieron dar nada y nosotros salimos a la calle que nos den esto.
And we took to the streets to fight for this.
Pero costó,
But
pero
it was hard.
pero acá está el logro.
But it was hard, but here is what we gained.
Pero nuestro sindicato no termina acá. Esto todavía,
Our union fight doesn't stop here.
estamos tratando de hacer que la gente estudie,
We're trying to make sure that people like learn more and educate themselves,
que aprendan inglés,
that they learn English. We have
que
English
termine,
classes.
tenemos clases de plomería, electricidad y diversos cursos que estamos acoplando ante nuestro sindicato.
We have classes that we offer our members, plumbing, electricity, English, that is offered by the union.
Tenemos ahorita abocados en seguir para adelante, ¿en qué? En la justicia social.
We are focusing on keep moving forward in social justice.
Estamos abocados ahora a explicarles a nuestros hermanos, sobre todo a todos los que están con miedo con el censo, para qué sirve el censo.
We're focusing on telling our brothers and sisters about that are scared about the census, what is the census and the importance of that.
Que es bueno para nosotros, es esencial para nosotros para que sepa que existimos en este país.
Because it's essential and it's important and they need to know that we exist in this country.
Por eso le doy las gracias por dejarme hablar, dejarme expresar,
Thank you for letting me speak and express myself.
y gracias a ustedes. Muy buenas noches.
And thank you, good night.
I would thank you very much, Mr. Salazar. I would like to next introduce our next speaker, John Carr. We've invited John. John is a legend in Catholic social justice circles, having previously served as the director of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, Department of Justice, Peace, and Human Development. Is that the right title for you?
Very modest.
And now teaching at Georgetown and running an initiative on Catholic social thought and public life. So John is going to offer us some reflections on Catholic social teaching on labor and work in light of what we've just heard from Mr. Salazar.
Well, thank you. Before I talk about the topic, let me just say something about KI. A lot of talk at Georgetown about mission, about Catholic mission, about what a university ought to be about. I'm proud to be on the same hallway with these folks. They take these lofty principles and ideas and put them to work, not only at this university, but in this city, in the labor movement, in the church. And it is amazing with a little bit of resources and a lot of courage and a lot of integrity what they have done. And I was sitting here thinking that, you know, I've done lots of things. I worked for the Bishops' Conference for 25 years. No time in purgatory for me. I now run this initiative, and some of the work we've done has been around economic justice, the rights of workers. We're doing a session on Monday around the life and work of Dorothy Day, a new film, Champion of Unions. But I also teach. I teach a seminar on Catholic social thought, public life, and Pope Francis. And it's terrific, except for grading. Georgetown students, many of them think an A- is a major defeat. A young guy came to see me and said, how come I got a B+ on my paper? And I said, because I'm a very generous grader. And he didn't think that was funny. But they're wonderful. These students, they come from every walk of life. We were having a discussion in our class around immigration and Catholic social teaching, and the professor was holding forth, and students were holding forth, more conservative, more liberal, more activist. There was a young guy in the class, when I met him, said, tell me about your mother, your family. He said, well, I don't know my dad. My mother cleans other people's houses, and I call her every night to see if she made it home, because she's undocumented. She does not have, it's just fighting for her. She is vulnerable in a way that most of us cannot even imagine. In that class, I talk about Rerum Novarum. what the new things were then and why the church supports work and workers. The core, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, the core of Catholic social teaching is human dignity. But the most clear expression of that teaching is around work, the dignity of work and the rights of workers. There's a lot more in papal teaching about work and workers than there is about aspects of human sexuality. But you wouldn't know that from the obsessions that guide some of our friends, frankly, on both the left and the right. So I try and talk to them about what human dignity is, and that it's not something you earn, it's something you have. I ought to bring Jesus in to talk about what dignity is like. I came here with nothing, and now this is what we have accomplished. I try and teach them what solidarity is. And I ought to have Jesus come in and say, you know what, I was doing better, but I had to fight for my co-workers, which I think is a direct quote. That's what solidarity is. I try and teach them about the family life and healthcare and vacation and benefits as something that belongs to people in order to respect their dignity, and I should have brought in the contract that Jesus fought for. There are lots of ways to think about this. I mostly think about encyclicals. What we just heard was a walking, talking encyclical. This is our tradition at work. This is the gospel in action, and whether it's explicitly religious, although Jesus talked about how he puts together his faith and the struggle for justice. Not all of us do, but one of the things about Pope Francis, and he's obviously in a long line, you go Leo the 13th, you know, Pius the 11th, John the 23rd. I mean, I have footnotes, you have footnotes for all these things. Pope John Paul II, who a lot of conservatives champion, was a champion of workers and the rights of workers. It was not the AFL-CIO that said unions were indispensable. It was John Paul II. It was not a bunch of politicians who brought down communism in Poland. It was a pope and a union and a word, solidarity, without a pane of glass being broken. I mean, people like talk about nonviolence. We'll talk about nonviolence with Dorothy Day next Monday. The most remarkable nonviolent revolution in our time was solidarity, like Valenza, a union, a ship workers union, and a pope. So we forget that this is part of our tradition. Pope Francis is absolutely a champion of workers and champion of human dignity. He has a great line. He says, "There's no good society without a good union." And it's great that you have built a good union, because that's contributing to a decent society. But Pope Francis is not much for words. He's more about actions. He more often shows us the way. So he looks at the world, at the economy, at work, from the bottom up and from the outside in. And frankly, the church and the labor movement and Georgetown, three institutions I love, would do a lot better if they looked at their mission from the bottom up and from the outside in. So to have an example, a person who is putting these ideas into action in a way that you can measure from 416 to 1610. Don't let professors find out you can get your birthday off. This is going to be a problem if that gets around. And it was not only what you achieved, but how it came about. One of my favorite ideas about unions, it's not that they help people have more, it's that they help people be more. We heard the pride, we heard the urgency, we heard the courage, we heard the tenacity. So to have a voice, he said, in our place, to be able to stand up for what we believe, to be able to defend other workers, to be able to have a grievance day. So if somebody treats you badly, this is our tradition in action. And I'm sad to say, in that class, wonderful students, they know a lot about the option for the poor, they know something about immigration, they even may know something about the church's commitment to peace, they certainly know about the church's commitment to human life. They don't know much about what our tradition has to say about work and workers. And that's on all of us. That's on the church, that's on the labor movement, that's on professors, and that's on the families that raise these students. We did one of our dialogues on this topic of economics and family life. And we had the president of the AFL-CIO, Rich Trumka, I think a distinguished leader, great person. We had an economist for the American Enterprise Institute, Michael Strain, good guy, a conservative voice for workers, for families. We had a theologian who talked about these ideas in ways that enlightened you and moved you. And then we had a young woman, I should have remembered her name and looked up her name, who was a cafeteria worker here at Georgetown. And she told the story of working at Leo's. I don't even know if it was called Leo's then, working at the cafeteria. And she had epilepsy. And she had a seizure. And she went over to the hospital and she called in and said, I can't come back to work. I've had a spell. And whoever her boss was says, you know, this happens too much. I don't think we can keep you on. And she went home, she recovered, she went to work the next day. And this is her story, as she told it. She said, as a student was coming through the line, she saw that she was down. And said, what's wrong? She said, I had a spell yesterday, and they told me they're probably going to fire me. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I have 2 boys. I just don't know what I'm going to do. And the student, nameless, said, well, what are you going to do about that? And she said, I don't think there's anything I can do. And the student said, you know, if you will stand up for yourself, I'll stand with you. And we'll get others to stand with you. And she said, and we got students, and we got professors, and we got Jesuits. And she said, that was the beginning of the union for food workers here at Georgetown. And she said, my kids, one's a sophomore in college, one's a senior in high school, and he's going to college. And Georgetown, that job, and that union put me in a position. And then she became an organizer to continue that work. Well, I would argue, in our tradition, that's not an economic profession, that's not a political option, that's not a reflection of ideology. That's a defense of human dignity. And for us, that's holy work. That's the work of the church. And so I think that's what drives Georgetown. I mean, not every campus has been open to adjuncts organizing. There have been other struggles on this campus, but it's up to workers to decide that they'll have a voice in the union. They'll be represented in the workplace. They'll have a representative to bargain with them and for them. It's not up to managers, it's not up to bishops, it's not up to the rest of us. It's up to them to decide. And sometimes they decide yes, sometimes they decide no, and we ought to respect that. That's their choice. But when they decide yes, we ought to see that as reflecting the best of American values and the best of our religious tradition. Pope Francis, while John Paul II was the champion of solidarity and really put it to work, Pope Francis loves solidarity and gets to. One of my favorite stories about him, I'm stalling until our work. One of my favorite stories about Pope Francis is, you may recall when he first was made Pope, he had a meeting with the Curia at Christmas, and it's a great tradition that, have this party and you tell everyone how wonderful they are. And Francis, who apparently never took a business administration course, met with the Curia and said, here are the 10 things you're doing wrong, the way you're undermining the church. One of them I remember was spiritual amnesia. The other was you forget who works for who, with humility and all. He just laid the law out, and it was not a great Christmas for the Curia. And then he left and he went to the Christmas party for the workers, the gardeners, the cooks, the janitors, the custodians. And he just seemed so much more at home with them. We need a church that is more at home with janitors and cooks and people who fix our food when we go on an airplane. Pope Francis, says it frequently, but he says solidarity is at the heart of the church's teaching. He says for some it's a dirty word, but it's our word. Solidarity is what Jesus taught us about. Solidarity is what we ought to be about, and solidarity is in many ways the missing mission in the United States and in our church and in our community. So, thank you, Jesus. I want you to come to my class.
Well, at this point, we have time to take some questions. I actually want to ask the first one. I would like to hear a little more about the brigades that you participated in and what they do and how they do it.
¿Entendiste la pregunta? ¿Y quieres saber un poco más acerca del programa de brigada? ¿Y qué es lo que hace y cómo lo hace?
Bueno, va para mí.
That means I have to stand.
Bueno, nosotros dentro de nuestro sindicato, de nuestro grupo, conformamos brigadas.
In our union, we have we formed brigades. We have brigade program.
La brigada consiste en traer gente de nosotros mismos, los trabajadores, por ejemplo, para el contrato, agarrar e ir a los edificios y explicarles a los trabajadores de qué se trata.
So it's our own members, the workers that work and they come to brigade and they go to speak to all the workers in the buildings and you bring them in to talk about, for example, their contract. And you explain to the workers at each building the importance of the contract and what it's about.
Después agarramos y salimos a explicar, inclusive nuestros compañeros y al público en general también.
So we explain and we tell them to our coworkers and to the general public about the contract.
Explícales nuestros beneficios que debemos ganar, los beneficios que no debemos de perder.
To tell them about the benefits that we should win and the benefits that we should not lose.
En este contrato, por ejemplo, las grandes compañías que nosotros trabajamos querían quitarnos días de enfermedad, querían quitarnos, incluidas estas vacaciones, querían quitarnos la forma de expresarnos nosotros, que no podíamos ya hablar, pedir lo que necesitamos.
So in this contract, the companies were trying to fight or take away sick days, vacation days, or even our voices to speak up, our right to speak up as workers.
Salimos a hacer mitis. Normalmente lo hacemos en parques cercanos a nuestro local. Reunimos a toda nuestra gente, le explicamos, decimos vamos a luchar, porque nosotros necesitamos por el bien de nuestra familia,
And we ended up doing meetings and rallies in the parks around DC. And we explained to them that we have to fight, that we have to speak up, and that we have to stand up for what we deserve.
Porque las compañías se jactan de decir que ellos nos pagan bien, que nosotros no debemos ganar ese sueldo que estamos ganando, porque para ellos somos podríamos decir, una raza mínima para ellos.
Because companies sometimes love to claim that they pay us too much already, or that they pay us well, and that we make too much money, and they like to keep us at the minimum, or they would like to keep us at the minimum.
Hacen que los mismos supervisores marginen a la gente, comiencen a subestimarlos, a dejarlos por los suelos, que digan, no, tu trabajo está bien y eso es todo lo que tienes que ganar, no puedes ganar más.
They make the supervisors make the workers feel like put them down, or to say that your work is not worth. So, and that's what he says the companies make them do that. Habla un poco más de la brigada.
Ya. Entonces, la brigada consiste en que nosotros salimos a la calle a protestar, salimos a nuestros edificios a protestar, en unión con muchos políticos que nos ayudan, que nos orientan.
So the brigade encompasses that, to go to the streets, to talk to the buildings, to protest, to make some kind of protest, and to work also with politicians and other groups that support us.
Nosotros llevamos encuestas a nuestros trabajadores, llevamos encuestas preguntándoles cuáles son sus necesidades.
We went to the buildings to do surveys about what are the needs for this future contract.
Eso es un trabajo que cuesta mucho tiempo y mucha dedicación, porque hay que ir edificio por edificio, hablar persona por persona a veces.
So that was a job that took a lot of time, and it took a lot of work, because we had to go to each building and we had to speak to individuals and explaining everything person to person.
Sobre todo acá en Washington tenemos más de 5,000 trabajadores.
Yeah, especially here in DC, where we have more than 5,000 workers.
5,000 asociados que hay que hablarles, que están llevados por el miedo del supervisor que los voten.
So about 5,000 workers that, sometimes are scared to speak up because supervisors are telling them they shouldn't speak to the union, or so we go educate them.
Yo ya tengo 5 brigadas y cerca de 4 contratos trabajados con la Unión.
I've done about 5 brigades and about 4 contracts that I worked with the union.
Hay muchos compañeros como yo
There's a lot of other coworkers like me
que quieren luchar, quieren vivir ganando un sueldo justo.
that want to fight and want to live making a fair living wage.
Porque hemos venido a este país a progresar y a trabajar por este país que nos abrió la puerta.
Because we've come to this country to make progress and to contribute to this country that gave us the opportunity.
Esto es todo.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Quite all right. We understand. We've heard from Mr. Salazar tell us about his experience as a member of the Service Employees Union, and his work as a union activist. And John Carr has been kind of putting it in the context of what the Catholic Church teaches about unions.
Okay.
And now we're really looking forward to hearing from you about your experience, both your work on the job and your work with the union.
Okay.
So, thank you very much.
All right. So good evening, everybody. I apologize again. My name is Tanae Stover. I'm employed at LSG Sky Chefs, which is an airline catering kitchen at DCA. And what we do is cater flights for all of the airlines that go in and out of the airport, which our main one is American Airlines. What got me started into the union was because the workers there, they're very underpaid and they're mistreated, and we pay expensive amount of money for health insurance. I've been there for 4 years. When I first started working there, we used to work in the cooler, where it was 30 and below degree temperature. We were provided with gloves and coats and scarves and like a lab jacket, but we were still cold and still standing on our feet for 8+ hours a day. On top of it being very cold in there, we were very underpaid. I started out making $8.40 an hour. Because I was only being paid $8.40 an hour, I'm living on my own. I was no longer able to take care of myself and my bills, so I was evicted from my place. On top of me being evicted from my place, we paid very expensive health insurance. For a single person, it's $60 a week. That's $200 to $300 a month for health insurance. Someone with a family, they're paying almost $500 a month for health insurance. And so there's 20,000 workers that work at Sky Chefs all over the United States. And we're standing up to say that we're fed up. We're standing up to say that one job should be enough. Our contract has been up for a year. We're still in negotiations with Sky Chefs and American Airlines to fight for 15 and for better health insurance and for a pension, for better living for ourselves and our families. Nobody should have to work 2-3 jobs just to make ends meet. One job should be enough. And what we've been doing is going to the airports, expressing our opinions by picketing. We've been going to meetings, and we've been demanding basically from American Airlines to pay us what we deserve, which is the 15 and better health insurance and a pension.
Thank you. And can you tell us a little bit about your role at the union, as what being on the bargaining committee is like and things like that?
Yes, so I'm a union representative at Sky Chefs, one of the union representatives. I've been doing that now for a year, and honestly, that's really what got me involved, was because my first experience at the negotiation tables was with the Sky Chefs managers and our side, which is Unite Here, our union there. And we were at that time demanding for the minimum wage at the airport to be raised to $12. And they acted as if we didn't matter. Like, the work that we do isn't how they're successful, how the business is operating and keeping up the way that it is. And so I was very angry because our general manager, who's there with us 24/7, knows the work that we do and knows that we should be paid more than what we're making right now. And so I really wanted to find out how I can get involved and really voice my opinion for myself and for my coworkers, for the ones who doesn't have a voice. And so we're still in negotiations. They still haven't talked about economics. They've talked about everything else except economics. And so until we get what we deserve, we're still going to be out there showing face and really letting our voices be known, because nobody knows what we're dealing with at Sky Chefs. Only the workers know, and it's up to the workers. So for me to be a leader, to stand up and actually let my voice be heard, that's how I got involved. And so we're waiting, and we're still fighting. We're still going to be doing what we do until we get it. So, yeah.
Something I wanted to highlight about this experience, about what we've heard from both Tanae and Jesus, is that well, when my first experience with the union came when I was working in a factory that didn't have a union, and a few of the workers, including myself, were dissatisfied with the safety conditions and decided to try and organize. And what we heard from the employer was a lot of stuff about, we don't need a third party in here. We don't need someone else coming in, getting in between us and the workers. A union is not a third party. A union is the people who belong to the union. The union bargains about what the members decide they want, and as Tanae was explaining, on the bargaining committee, you know, she's part of formulating what the bargaining demands are. That's the same role that Jesus plays in 32BJ. The members get polled, and then the members themselves are making these demands at the bargaining table. So it's really an opportunity to exercise democracy in the workplace and have a voice. It's not about having a third party negotiating for you. But I'm sure some other folks have some questions for our panelists, and I want to put it open to questions.
My question was, Mr. Salazar spoke about how he was involved in his church and the local parishes. I'd be curious to know if you felt supported by the church at large outside of the encyclicals or Catholic social teaching documents, if you felt supported by the local parishes, by the archdiocese, by the local church in this quest.
Cuando dice que cuando estás luchando por un contrato de trabajo, que si tuviste algún apoyo del grupo de la iglesia o de tu grupo de
Comunidad.
¿tiene? Ajá. O si estuvieron involucrados o ayudaron.
Sí, sí tuvimos un gran apoyo porque algunos de mis compañeros que están en mi comunidad religiosa pertenecen al sindicato también y son conscientes de la lucha que estamos haciendo.
So yes, I felt like there was support from the group that I belong to, because many of my fellow members of the group that he's part of are also custodians or janitors that are members of the union. So they were aware of the fight that was happening with the contract. I don't know if that's the thing.
I guess I was thinking, like, was his priest aware of what was happening, and did he feel supported by his priest? Did he feel supported by kind of the church at large?
Más, perdón, yo creo que lo introdují, lo traduje más está basando más en el apoyo de la iglesia, no del grupo tuyo, de tus compañeros, sino de los padres o de la iglesia, si ellos ayudaron en algún tipo de apoyo.
Sí, yes. Sí.
Y como los padres o la iglesia.
En la iglesia que formo parte yo consulté al sacerdote. Entonces, en una de las manifestaciones él estuvo ahí y me dijo que era una lucha justa, porque tenemos derecho como católicos a no ser marginados, ni a ser aparte de católico, ninguna ideología religiosa debe ser marginada.
So he said he did have a conversation with his priest about the fight that they were doing, and he told them that that they supported him and that nobody should be marginalized or nobody should be left out, regardless of, well, he said us as Catholics, but anybody from any religion, and that he was present at one of the events.
Thank you.
Sí, tú, 2 veces. En tu oportunidad.
The follow-up question, what parish does he belong to?
¿A qué iglesia es la que vas?
Yo voy a 2 iglesias.
He goes to 2 different.
Reina de las Américas y San Charlie Borromeo en Arlington.
So one in Arlington, which, ¿cómo se llama?
San Charlie Borromeo,
St. Charles.
St. Charles Borromeo.
San Charlie Borromeo
And then
Arlington.
in Our Lady of the Americas in DC.
y en DC, Reina de las Américas.
Our Lady of the Americas, right? Or something like that. Sorry, I'm not vested in the translation.
I have 2 questions. One for today. How can folks here support your contract campaign? Is there something concrete that people in this room can do that would be helpful?
Yes, so we have a website called airportstrikealert.org, and it gives updates on what's going on with the campaign. Right? Airportstrikealert.org.
Yeah, and there's also onejob.org
Okay.
/airports or airlines, something like that.
Yes.
Onejob.org will also give you updates on that, and I'm sure we'll have updates that we can discuss as well. We're always in contact, so as we have actions.
And then my other question is for Janice and Jesus. I heard in the contract negotiations, protections for around harassment on the job was a big deal, and I was just wondering what happened with those. Like, what's the issue that was being resolved, and what happened with in negotiations?
La pregunta es acerca del acoso, de la protección del contrato del acoso, ¿qué tipo de cosas se ganaron para ese tipo? ¿Y cuáles son
claro.
básicamente cuáles son los problemas?
Uno de los principales puntos también que teníamos en la agenda para este nuevo contrato es el acoso sexual de parte de los empleados, de los dueños de las compañías, supervisores y demás gente allegada hacia nosotros.
So one of the main focuses of this contract was to put language about sexual harassment being done from supervisors and managers to the workers. And
Hubo muchos casos,
there's been quite a few cases that have
hubo
come
muchos casos que los supervisores por dar trabajo a una persona la acosaban sexualmente.
So supervisors would promise, a job to somebody and then sexually harass them.
Venía el manager igual,
And sometimes
y
managers
si
would-
no accedía, la botaba.
and if they wouldn't work, then they would fire them. So
Noso-
voy a hablar rapidito. I'm just gonna sum them up because so basically the language that we were able to get is there's laws already about sexual harassment there's laws, right? But what we were able to win is basically the same, like a procedure and a language that's gonna be clear to workers about what steps to take, because we have over 60 companies that are part of our contract, because there's many contractors, and so they have agreed to all go by the same procedure and have that language available to workers and posted so people know what the procedures are, because each company had a different procedure and it wasn't known. So now that was perdón que te...
Sí, solo el acoso no era solo hacia las mujeres, había acoso hacia los hombres también.
So there was harassment not only for women but also for men.
Y,
So-
y la única solución era,
And the only solution was
la única solución era denunciarlos. Pero la gente tenía miedo de denunciar, miedo.
so people were very scared. People were scared, and so that's also the focus of this new contract, of telling people, making people aware that they can speak up. Go ahead. Sorry to add to his,
Sorry.
adding my.
Yeah, hi everyone, my name is Tom Killeen, I'm a business representative for Sheet Metal Workers Local Union 100. I'm also legislative director, and I cover both Maryland and Virginia. We have over 3,000 members. But I guess for today in your union, I guess the question I have, do you guys have any legislation in Virginia this, session, or maybe something for next session to help the workers out? And maybe, I was just in Richmond today on a bill that we had, two-person crew bill on trains. We have a transportation division also besides sheet metal workers. But I just want to know if there's any legislation that you have in, or you're thinking of putting any legislation in to help these folks.
Tonight, do you know anything about this right now? Okay. So our main focus is going to be right to work and reversing that. As of right now, we don't have anything that we're going to be pushing in Virginia, but I'm personally working on legislation for other states, but not Virginia.
Right, well, for the building trades, just to let everyone know, in Virginia, Ralph Northam has come out, said he's really not for,
Right.
getting rid of, unfortunately, right to work, but we're going after some lower hanging fruit, like PLAs, project labor agreements, and getting rid of the Dillon rule and wage theft and things of that nature. So, just give you an idea, maybe you should, I don't know who your legislative director is, but maybe you should try a different tack in Virginia that would help people like Tanay and people like this gentleman here. So, different, it's just an idea.
I'm gonna step in real quick. I know
Yeah.
I'm his rep.
Okay,
and
you know,
and
I
I
thought
work
you
in
were the
the commercial.
translator, I'm sorry.
I'm his translator,
Yeah,
but
okay.
I'm also his union rep. I work for 32BJ,
Yeah.
and so we represent. Obviously, a majority is janitors in DC, Maryland, Virginia, but we also represent, starting to represent some airport workers. And so yesterday we did have a big day in Richmond.
Okay.
And so I know that our 32BJ, we're pushing for, obviously, just like everybody else, the 15 and driver's license because we have a lot of Virginia members. But I know that, that not only working through that, but also working through the M1, I think that there's, M1 is the
Airports Authority.
The airport authority, and I think we've been able to get a couple of increases there with Unite here, but, you know, striving towards, so trying to think the tactic, I think Unite here does the same thing, is going not only through legislative, but also through the M1 thing. Getting slowly there, but not fast enough, we know.
But today, you were at the MR meeting, if you wanted, you were at the MR meeting, right, about the legislation that was passed, right?
I wasn't at the meeting, but,
No, at the meeting with you and the MR board.
oh yeah, the director boards of NY, last year, we had a meeting with them where, a couple of them came and heard our stories, basically trying to demand them to support to raise the minimum wage at the airport to 15. And they've agreed to do it, but 2023. But that was our tactic throughout the summer, from the summer into the winter time, really was to go at the meetings when they had their meetings once a month and to let them know about the workers at the airport and what they're dealing with.
And I might add something to the point about the lobbying as well, and also reflecting on the question about support from the church. Yesterday, Keith and I, along with Father Bob Selinsky, representing Bishop Burbage of Arlington, rode down to Richmond with the janitors and with the hotel and food service workers to lobby for a $15 minimum wage. And Father Bob went around with the workers and presented the church's support for seeing a $15 minimum wage in Virginia. So yes, there's a lot of work being done at the policy level.
Good. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I have a couple questions for tonight. One is that when people go through airports, two things almost always happen to every airport traveler. One, they gotta go through the TSA security, and two, they make jokes about airplane food. And I wonder first whether that wounds you because this is what you do for a living, and whether that affects you in some way. And the second question is, you were late here because your boss made you stay late. Is short staffing a chronic thing in the work that you do?
Yes, so to the second question, yes. Every Wednesday they have orientation, so like the turnover rate is very rapid. For the years that I've been there, it's been like a 50% like turnover rate, and it's because of the pay and the health insurance, and then the strenuous amount of work that you have to do. You're on your feet 8+ hours a day, with only like 3 breaks in between time. With the first question, does it affect me as far as with the food? No.
It's not your fault.
Should I make the menu, right?
This is also for Nate.
Yes.
How much support are you getting in your effort from other unions in the airline industry, the flight attendants, the TSA employees, and the pilots even? We're not going to talk about the air traffic control. Let's leave them out. But there was a time before 9/11 when the security workers who were contracted by the airlines made less than the workers who staffed the kiosks and restaurants in the concourses. And unfortunately, because of 9/11, but fortunately because of the airport security bill, they were able to unionize after a long fight that included, a long fight. So I'm interested in hearing what kind of support they are offering you in your fight to unionize and get a decent wage and improve these conditions that you're talking about.
So they have, the flight attendants and the pilots, they have came out when we've done pickets at the airport and definitely showed their support there. And the idea of what we're doing now, we actually got it from the flight attendants, when back a couple of years ago when they created like something called Chaos, where they did the vote to be released to go on strike, where they organized their underground organizing. We actually got that idea from them, but they have been out to support us when we've been at the airport on pickets.
I should mention by way of explanation what, on the airport strike alert question before in this one, the food service workers are in a rather, and other airport employees are in a rather unique position in the U.S. Every other group of workers has a right to strike if they are not satisfied with their wages or their working conditions. Airline employees need to get special permission from the president and from the FAA, I guess it is, to be released to go on strike. And so far, they have not been given that permission. And that's why they're spending so much time going out and trying to share the word with folks. They're asking for permission, though. They voted to.
Well, that'll happen.
Any other questions? Well,
I have a question for you.
oh,
Tonight, I want to ask the same question that someone asked of you. Did your church support you in with your fight?
I haven't said anything about it to my church, so
Oh,
that
okay.
is a good question.
Can I follow up on that then?
Yes.
Do you feel supported by wherever you're worshiping? Like, are there your faith tradition, regardless of like who you're talking to in your church, but like friends, do you talk about it and find support outside of the church in that?
Outside of church, yes, but I never honestly thought to say anything at church, but I can, and I'm sure that I will get the support if I was to bring it up.
all right. Well, I want to thank our guest speakers. I really appreciate all of you making the time to come out here. I know it wasn't easy to get here for everybody, and I learned a lot from hearing what you had to say. I should add, for any of you who are not already receiving our electronic newsletter, the Catholic Labor Networks, when we get news on these different events, or when we get news on labor disputes involving the custodians, involving the food service workers, we send out monthly, sometimes twice a month, newsletters on that. There's a sign-up sheet outside that, or right on the table, that you can use to sign up. All right.
Thank you.